Professor used the evolution theory from the viewpoint of Christianity, the thorough analysis of the descent or origin of man. Lecture 28, Chapter 18, Secondary Sexual Characters of Mammals. In an earlier chapter, we have seen that the mental powers of the higher animals do not differ in kind, though greatly in degree from the corresponding powers of man, especially of the lower and barbarous races. And it would appear that even their taste for the beautiful is not widely different from that of quadrumana. With mammals, we do not at present possess any evidence that the males take pains to display their charms before the females, and the elaborate manner in which this is performed by male birds and other animals is the strongest argument in favor of the belief that the females admire or are excited by the ornaments and colors displayed before them. There is, however, a striking parallelism between mammals and birds in all their secondary sexual characters, namely in their weapons for fighting with rival males, in their ornamental appendages, and their colors. In both classes, when the male differs from the female, the young of both sexes almost always resemble each other, and in a large majority of cases resemble the adult female. In both classes, the male assumes the characters proper to his sex shortly before the age of reproduction, and if emasculated at an early period, loses them. In both classes, the male is almost always more vividly or strongly colored than the female, and is ornamented with larger crests of hair or feathers or other appendages. With many mammals, and at least in the case of one bird, the male is more odoriferous than the female. In both classes, the voice of the male is more powerful than that of the female. Considering this parallelism, there can be little doubt that the same cause, whatever it may be, has acted on mammals and birds, and the result, as far as ornamental characters are concerned, may be attributed, as it appears to me, to the long-continued preference of the individuals of one sex for certain individuals of the opposite sex, combined with their success in leaving a large number of offspring to inherit their superior attraction. Equal transmission of ornamental characters to both sexes. With many birds, ornaments which analogy leads us to believe were primarily acquired by the males have been transmitted equally or almost equally to both sexes, and we may now inquire how far this view applies to mammals. With a considerable number of species, especially of the smaller kinds, both sexes have been colored independently of sexual selection for the sake of protection. No one doubts that the quadrupeds inhabiting snow-clad regions have been rendered white to protect them from their enemies or to favor their stealing on prey. In regions where snow never lies for long, a white coat would be injurious. Consequently, species of this color are extremely rare in the hotter part of the world. The raw for instance, has a red summer and a grayish-white winter coat, and the latter may perhaps serve as a protection to the animal whilst wandering through the leafless thickets sprinkled with snow and hoar frost. If the above-named animals were gradually to extend their range into regions perpetually covered with snow, their pale winter coats would probably be rendered through natural selection whiter and whiter until they become as white as snow. The narrow white lines on the flank and the broad white bar on the shoulder are more distinct in the male Oreus derubianus than in the female. It seems a much more probable conclusion that the various marks were first acquired by the males and their colors intensified through sexual selection, and then partially transferred to the females. If this view be admitted, there can be little doubt that the equally singular colors and marks of many other antelopes, though common to both sexes, have been gained and transmitted in a like manner. After having studied to the best of my ability the sexual difference of animals belonging to all classes, I cannot avoid the conclusion that the curiously arranged colors of many antelopes, though common to both sexes, are the result of sexual selection primarily applied to the male. Summary: the law of battle for the possession of the female appears to prevail throughout the whole great class of mammals. Most naturalists will admit that the greater size, strength, courage, and pugnacity of the male, his special weapons of offense, as well as his special means of defense, have been acquired or modified through that form of selection which I have called sexual. This does not depend on any superiority in the general struggle for life, but on certain individuals of one sex, generally the male being successful in conquering other males and leaving a large number of offspring to inherit their superiority. There is another and more peaceful kind of contest, in which the males endeavor to excite or allure the females by various charms. This is probably carried on in some cases by the powerful odors emitted by the males during the breeding season. The odoriferous glands having been acquired through sexual selection, whether the same view can be extended to the voice is doubtful, for the vocal organs of the males must have been strengthened by use during maturity under the power excitements of love, jealousy, or rage, and will consequently have been transmitted to the same sex. Various crests, tufts, and mantles of hair, which are either confined to the male or are more developed in this sex than in the female, seem in most cases to be ornamental, though they sometimes serve as a defense against rivals. There is even reason to suspect that the branching horns of stags and the elegant horns of certain antelopes, though properly serving as weapons of offense or defense, have been partly modified for ornament. When the male differs in color from the female, he generally exhibits dark and more strongly contrasted tints. We do not, in this class, meet with the splendid red, blue, yellow, and green tints so common with the male birds and many other animals. The naked parts, however, of certain quadrumana must be accepted, for such parts, often oddly situated, are brilliantly colored in some species. The colors of the male in other cases may be due to simple variation without the aid of selection. But when the colors are diversified and strongly pronounced, when they are not developed until near maturity, and when they are lost after emasculation, we can hardly avoid the conclusion that they have been acquired through sexual selection for the sake of ornament, and have been transmitted exclusively or almost exclusively to the same sex. The conspicuous and diversified colors, whether confined to the males or common to both sexes, are as a general rule associated in the same group and subgroup with other secondary sexual characters serving for war or ornaments. The law of the equal transmission of characters to both sexes as far as color and other ornaments are concerned has prevailed far more extensively with mammals than with birds. But weapons such as horns and tusks have often been transmitted either exclusively or much more perfectly to the males than to the females. This is surprising, for as the males generally use their weapons for the defense against enemies of all kinds, their weapons would have been of service to the females. As far as we can see, their absence in this sex can be accounted for only by the form of inheritance which has prevailed. Finally, with quadrupeds, the contest between the individuals of the same sex, whether peaceful or bloody, has, with the rarest exceptions, been confined to the males, so that the latter have been modified through sexual selection far more commonly than the females, either for fighting with each other or for alluring the opposite sex. Hitherto, we examined roughly the sexual selection and the secondary sexual characters of the 6 classes, which are insects, fishes, amphibia, reptiles, birds, and mammals except man. Shalom.